Bonjour, and welcome to the Amateur Detective Club. This club is exactly how it sounds. A bunch of amateurs talking about their favorite mysteries. So if you encounter a real mystery or a murder, contact the proper authorities. Do not come to us. We do not know what we are doing. But enjoy the program. Allons-y, let us begin.
Quand il me prend dans ses bras, il me parle tout bas.
I now call this meeting of the Amateur Detective Club to order. I am Melissa Meli, the spy.
And I'm Tristan Miller, Kid Cop.
And I'm Tyler Riley, Cop and a Half. Do I have a different nickname, or is that okay?
Yeah, that's your name now.
That's okay. That's it. Moving forward.
You made that bed. You gotta lie in it.
I'm fine with it. I just wanted.
Okay.
I just wanted.
Oh
to
yeah,
know.
you got it.
So Melissa,
Yes.
what is today's meeting about?
We will be discussing The Adventure of the Clapham Cook, which is the TV episode from the series Poirot.
Yeah, the first one, episode 1, season 1, right? We all watched the same episode, correct?
Oh goodness, I hope
Yes.
so. that
We
would
shall
be a real
soon
weird
find
meeting.
out.
Yes.
I thought before we got started, I could give you a little bit of a background of the Poirot series, because there's not like a lot of fascinating things. It's like the main point of interest, at least for me, was the fact that it ran from January 1989 to November 2013.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
They had 24 seasons of this show starring David Suchet and Hugh Fraser, who we know from the audiobooks, and it's great seeing their little faces on screen.
And hearing their voices together, it's really cool.
Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. This seems to be a very British thing. Because, Doctor Who, the original one ran for 800 years, and then the new one has been running for,
Yeah. I think it's one of those things of, like, the way the BBC works, from my understanding, is since it's a public service, I don't know if people actually, like, vote on it, but if it's popular, it stays around for longer. That being said, to contrast those things, you have shows that are really good, like The It Crowd or Black Books, that run, like, 2 or 3 seasons every 3 years because of production. So it's like, it's a weird system, and Stephen Fry gave a really interesting speech about where the BBC came from and where it's going a few years ago, if you want to look that up, for history about the British broadcasting system.
I mean, I think that's very interesting. Something our listeners would really like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Chances are, if you like British literature, you probably like British popular television. I don't know.
Probably.
Pop culture, probably.
Okay.
Cool.
So shall we get into the short story?
I have one more thing about this before we get into the story.
Okay.
The theme song.
Oh.
Oh my god.
Uh-huh.
The title sequence.
I had a note about that as well.
Yeah, it is amazing. The song is an absolute banger, but it is also the tackiest, corniest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I love it a lot. It's pretty great.
What do you think, Tyler?
I thought the 80s took that, and that's what we got.
Okay. That's fair.
That's one way to put it.
I mean, you had, like, it was like this... It was so late 80s, because it had, like, almost, like, the 90s jazz, like, kind of, coloring, and, like, it was a lot.
It was very soap opera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I like it a whole lot.
Yeah, it's very fun. But wow.
I kind of have it in my head, but I don't know it really well yet. So it's just like this
vague saxophone music plays.
Yeah. morphing into other things as if I try to sing it out loud.
Yeah. I love also that you can tell that this thing is definitely a pilot because the lighting is terrible, the cameras aren't very good, it's confusing.
Yeah.
It's very nice. It's nice to see that it's like where it starts.
Yep. We don't know what we're doing yet.
Mm-hmm.
All right, shall we get into the adventure of the Clapham Cook?
Please.
Okay.
Sure.
Yes. So Hastings is looking through the paper and reading about cases to Poirot, and Poirot is not very interested and wants to talk about a much more important matter, his clothing, which needs revamping, I guess. So their servant, whose name in the series, I guess, is Miss Lemon.
Amazing.
Yep, very good.
Mhm.
She's very good. She comes in and introduces Mrs. Todd, who is outside to see Poirot.
Mhm.
And Mrs. Todd, who is very blunt, and wonderfully so, wants Poirot to find his cook, Eliza Dunn.
Mm-hmm.
And at first, Poirot is kind of like, nah, that doesn't sound like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But Mrs. Todd says, you know what? She's a really good cook, and that's hard to find. And Poirot says, of course, what am I saying?
Mm-hmm. After all, we are in England. The cooks, they are very hard to find. Anyone that knows how to do anything with butter.
Yes, my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine butter?
Oh.
Butter's so good. I love butter.
It is so good.
Yep.
Mm.
So they travel out to Clapham, where Mrs. Todd lives, and to investigate this mystery. And he's embarrassed about it, and he says to Hastings that Inspector Japp of Scotland Yard must never find out.
Yeah. That is true.
Yeah. So then Poirot starts interviewing the domestics, and there's a servant, Annie, and I can't figure out, was she the maid or something like that?
I believe she's the assistant
She was the... Oh, go ahead.
No, Tyler, you go.
I thought that she was the maid because I think when Mrs. Todd is recounting in the office the events as she knew them, Poirot asked her how many domestics she has in the house. I believe she said she had one cook and one maid, or something along those lines.
Okay.
Understood.
Annie, the servant, the maid, thinks that she has been taken... Oh my goodness.
Did I break Tristan?
I'm sorry, this moment was so funny.
Oh man.
Wait, what moment?
The whole, like, tell who Annie thinks took this woman.
White slavers.
Right.
Yep.
Because all I could
Yeah.
think of was when George Lucas called Disney white slavers.
Oh.
After he saw Force Awakens, that's all I could think of.
Oh man.
Also, the level of delusion that this maid has, where, yeah, white slavers came and took this cook. And the fact that, like, Poirot is so funny in that scene. Sorry.
He's so good. Because then he says, yes, but do you really think that white slavers would have taken the maid if, the cook, and then she would have sent for her trunk?
Yep. And she was like, well, I think she would want her stuff even when she's abroad.
Yeah, oh man, it's so...
Oh.
it's so not right.
It's so funny.
Yeah. But, yes, because there is a very important point that she has sent for her trunk. She sent for her
Yes.
things,
Yeah.
and the trunk is no longer there. This
Yes.
is key. This
Yes.
is repeated many times. Do not forget it.
Mhm.
Forget at your peril.
Mhm.
Important point. Yes. So then Poirot asks a few more questions, and it becomes clear that there is a paying guest in the house. Someone's renting a
Yep.
room. and his name is Mr. Simpson. And they go to interview him, and he has the most vacant look on his face.
Yeah. He is horrifying.
Yeah.
I love him so, not the character, but the actor so much.
Yes.
He's brilliant.
Yeah, he did a really good job. And he is saying that, no, he has no idea. He's barely even noticed that there is a cook. Oh, I guess there's a cook. There must be a cook that exists in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Suppose I've seen her once or twice. And then Poirot mystifyingly asks him whether he's interested in community theater.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And he says, I guess so. And then they leave, and it's not addressed for, like, half the episode.
Yeah. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Alright, I don't know where we're going with that one, Poirot, but glad you asked about his nighttime entertainment. They go home. Poirot and Hastings go home after these interviews. And Poirot is enraged getting a letter from Mr. Todd saying,
Ooh, Mr. Todd.
saying that they will no longer be needing his services. And he pays him 1 guinea for the initial investigation.
Tacky.
Yes, petty, literally. I would say that I would like to point out that David Suchet's acting in this scene is so good.
Oh, yes.
Because he is so funny, but he believes that he is just, like, terribly offended at this whole prospect. And it is wonderful, and I love it.
But of course, Poirot is not going to let this go. He is going to continue investigating this with or without the Todds.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he puts an ad in the paper looking for Eliza Dunn and asking her to write to him, and asks Hastings to call around employment agencies looking for her. So he goes into the bank and finds out that Mr. Simpson was absent from work on Thursday, which is the day after the maid was last seen.
Yes.
In the meantime, some guy named Davis, who also works at the bank with Mr. Simpson, has stolen a bunch of bonds or securities from the bank, and Inspector Japp is at the bank looking into this. So he's interviewing, Inspector Japp is interviewing Mr. Simpson, and Japp sees Poirot. And, okay, did this strike you as odd, their relationship in this episode? Because we know from the short stories that Poirot and Japp are friends. They see each other and they're like buddies. But in this one, it seems like Japp and Poirot kind of don't like each other. Or don't trust each other, and it's really strange. Am I the only one picking up on that?
I didn't get that vibe.
Oh, no?
No, I just thought it was like... Oh, okay. I just thought it was this guy, you know, who's a friend, like, just keeps interrupting this dude on the job. Like, dude, like, back off. Like, I'm actually, like, a working, proper policeman. You're a private detective. Let me do my thing. And if I choose to give you clues, like, I will. But, like, let me finish my investigation. Be a buddy, dude.
Okay. What did you think, Tristan?
Well, I think this also takes place before, like, after the first novel, but before most of the short stories. So they're... And in the first novel, they are, like, antagonistic. It's almost a Lestrade Sherlock dynamic that she quickly abandons because it makes fun of Sherlock Holmes for doing it for too long, which is amazing. But I think it's a combination of that, and then also I think part of their friendship has always been, like, a competitive nature, the way, like men who are in the same position or the same field will compete with each other for fun.
I love that you just said men.
Sure. You know, but yeah, like, it's very, like, I'm gonna outdo you because that's the fun part of the job.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at least that's the vibe I was getting. But yeah, he's really cold to him later in the episode when he thinks that Poirot has made a mistake.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is interesting.
That is true.
They do have a different dynamic than they do.
I was just saying, like, but again, like, if you had a friend and you're, like, on your job and your friend keeps interrupting you doing your job, you'd be mad, too. So, like, I just thought it was like, you know.
That's fair.
Friends fight.
I also think he walks over there with, I think, the explicit notion to give him a hard time for trying to find a cook as well.
Yeah.
Because, like, Poirot does, like, diamond thievery and takes down world governments. So for him to be trying to find a cook is absurd.
Right.
Yeah.
He knows he doesn't want Jap to know about this case.
Mm-hmm.
And the withered look on his face when Jap says, so you've been investigating this case of the cook? And he just... I can't do the expression over an audio medium, but it's very good.
It's so good. It's very good.
Gosh, there's a lot of setting in this one, guys.
There is. It's very plot heavy.
Very plot heavy. So, some time passes, but he finally gets a letter from Eliza Dunn. And she says, oh, no, don't worry. I already got my legacy. I'm all good. And Hastings is saying, okay, cool, what's the legacy? And Poirot looks at the return address and says, all right, I guess we're going here now.
Mm-hmm.
And they go out to the country, where Poirot is offended by the cool, crisp country air and the lack of stuff there in general. Yes, so he's very grumpy about it, and it's very cute. So Eliza welcomes them in, and Poirot keeps saying, I don't think your employer will be upset. And she says, well, no, I don't think they will, because I own this house. I live here.
This is my home.
Yeah.
I brought you to my home. You are my guest.
Yeah, exactly. So she says it's part of her legacy. Again, that word.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she says that she thought that it should have been taken care of with her former employer, Mrs. Todd, because she gave a letter to Mr. Crotchet, whoever that is, to give to her and say, hey, I am no longer going to be working here. Sorry, peace, bye. But clearly Mrs. Todd never got that letter.
No.
Yes.
Where she just sent the peace emoji and the word bye.
That's what the letter was. Exactly.
Yeah.
Peace emoji. Bye. And it was like on a torn piece of newsprint or something. Yeah. That's old text messages. They drew the emoji. So she recounts what happened on Wednesday, which is the day that everyone keeps saying that she was last seen. So this man, Mr. Crotchet, allegedly an attorney, allegedly Australian,
yes,
approached her saying she'd been left a house by, I guess, a distant relative or something. But on the absurd condition that she not be a domestic servant.
Yes.
I mean, those are in my provisions in my will.
You cannot be a cook.
How
or a maid.
dare you?
Forget about it.
No money for you. So he convinces her to retroactively, wink, wink, quit her job, and she has to take the train from King's Cross, which I enjoyed because of the Harry Potter books. I know it's just a station in London, but
yeah. But it's also a historical monument
to Harry Potter.
To Harry Potter.
Yes. She has to take the train from King's Cross that night, right away, to take possession of the house by noon tomorrow. And so she goes out, and she does it, and she gets her house and the money, and doesn't question it, because it sounds like a pretty good deal to her. I don't really blame her.
Absolutely.
But then when she talks about getting her stuff back, she says that it was all wrapped in brown paper.
Mm-hmm.
And thinks her former employer must have been very angry with her. Or
Yes.
miffed at least. And had taken her box or her trunk. And so Poirot thanks her very kindly and rushes Hastings out.
Mm-hmm.
And calls Jack before they even get on the train back to the city to say that he should not be looking for Davis, but he should be looking for Simpson.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yes.
And then on the train, my favorite exchange of the entire episode happens, and it is Poirot is basically like, "What do you think, Hastings?" And he goes, "Oh, it's got to do something with Eliza Dunn." No. Oh. And he just looks very upset. And he's just the most, like, I thought I was doing a good job.
Yeah.
This is so good.
Yeah.
But yes, they run back, and then they get to the house, right?
Yes.
To the Todd's house, and they're going through the Todd's house, and wait.
Yes. Before that, also
Before
on
that.
the train, another important conversation happens.
Okay.
Poirot talks about the interview he had with Simpson, and
Yes.
said to Hastings that he had noticed that Simpson had been wearing like there was spirit gum or whatever in his sideburns. And that's why he asked him about the theater. And so Hastings says, "Oh, should I say this part or should I save it?"
You can say it.
Yes, because that's when it happens in the episode.
Yes.
I just realized that it's a big reveal. So Poirot had noticed that he had spirit gum, and so he had been wearing a false beard, and Hastings says, "Oh, there is no Mr. Crotchet, the attorney, the Australian. It was Simpson all along wearing a false beard."
Yes.
And Poirot gets this very lovely little satisfied look on his face.
Mm-hmm.
Like, finally, Hastings, you've done something right.
Yep.
I would like to say as well, the guy who plays Simpson in this, his Australian accent is the most English Australian accent I've ever heard in my life.
You leave Dermot Crawley
I barely
alone.
even registered it.
Yeah.
Well,
It's just
I
like,
mean, it was...
all right.
Yeah.
And that's about it. That was the whole bit. Like, okay, you seem to have a bit of a fortune.
So,
But
Tristan...
the latest thing.
Tristan, please continue telling us what happened at the Todd's house.
Oh, they get to the Todd's house. Mr. Simpson's not there, right?
Right.
And also, the Todds don't let Poirot in because they're mad at him for continuing the investigation. Jap is there, and it's like, well, we didn't find anything.
Yeah.
With his luxurious mustache. It's a war of the mustaches, really.
Alternate title for this TV series.
Yes.
The war of the mustaches.
It's also a Shakespeare play.
Yes. So Poirot is like, well, certainly not gonna give up now. So he goes down to the back landing and knocks on the window to talk to Annie again.
Yes, it's so good.
It's so good. It's such a good little exchange. And she tells him about the chest, the
yes.
trunk that was sent to the station and what station to find it at. And he's like, yay, thank you so much.
And she also says that it was very heavy and all locked up, and it took 3 people to take it downstairs.
Yes. So.
And also, Poirot goes to leave, and she starts to let out this creepy-ass laugh, like, out of nowhere, for no reason. I will not let that go unacknowledged.
She's having a good time helping the famous detective.
It was creepy.
A very creepy laugh.
Sure, I found her delightful.
I found her delightful. Too.
I did too.
Is it just because she looked like Bridget?
Maybe she just reminded me of my friend Bridget, and I was like, oh no, she's trustworthy.
Sorry, Tyler, what was that?
I was just saying, like, I found her delightful too, up until that moment. Like, I was like, we're all good. She's great. So was the cook. I love them both. Those two, that's a show I want to see as a spinoff. Then that laugh happened, and I was like, stop the world. I need to get off. Like, I'm done with this. Going to Mars. Hashtag Space Force.
That be...
Oh my goodness.
So I would like to say, speaking of creepy side characters,
Yes.
this guy, they go to the station, and the guy that works there is like a 1 hour photo level of just creepy, banal, weird guy. Because, like,
Really is.
even, like, his introduction, like, Poirot rings for him, like, twice, and then the blinds go up, and he's just staring at him with a cup of tea. And it's horrifying. But they talk to this bellboy.
Yes.
And then he goes, oh, well, it's going on to Glasgow now, isn't it? And I think he was going to go to Bolivia. And
Yes.
he's like, why do you think he was going to go to Bolivia? And he goes, well, when he paid for the postage, I seen he got Bolivian notes in his on him, so I reckon that's where he's headed next. And Hastings like, yes, well, fine. The whole time he's very grumpy.
Yes, Hastings
can I
versus
say,
the Porter
Tristan?
was...
Yeah.
Oh, yes, exactly. This whole thing,
Yeah.
because Hastings is being very, very protective.
Yes.
And so Tristan, in this, I wrote down, Tristan, you're right. Hastings is a Gryffindor.
I win at long last.
Yep. I love my house. But oh man, do we jump out of the gate real fast?
Yes.
Oh man. But yeah, so we've gotten that information from this creepy bellboy.
He's so creepy.
So they go to Scotland Yard to tell Jaff that Simpson is the one stealing securities. Have them look into the trunk at Glasgow, which they find. And they're like, yep, we found the trunk. You were right. And he said, well, did you open it? No. Why would we need to open it? And so Poirot says, it's because you're going to find the body of Davis in there.
Mm-hmm.
And on that note, why don't we go to a note from our sponsor, which is ourselves.
Yes.
Hey Tristan,
Hey, Christina.
do you like anime?
I don't know.
Do you like me?
Yes.
Do you want to watch anime with me?
Yes.
Do you want to make it into a podcast?
Yes.
Great!
What's it gonna be called?
It's called the Animazing Podcast.
When it comes out?
It comes out every Saturday. Bye!
And we're back.
We're back. Tyler, can you tell us about this crime now?
Please?
It is at this time that I would like to say, I think I misunderstood what I was supposed to do as Secretary of Crime.
Okay. What did you do?
I wrote, Belgravia and overseas Blankkirk absconds with fortune, missing domestic of the Tuds. I thought I was just supposed to recount what the crime was. Not necessarily how Simpson actually did it. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to need a little help,
Okay.
I'm sure.
We'll help you if you need it, yeah.
Great. So Simpson also worked at the bank with Davis. Davis steals like this, I think it was £9,000.
Something like
Something
that.
like that.
He steals some money stuff.
Yes. And in a double cross, he kills Davis, but in order to get rid of the body and rid of that evidence, he apparently needs an old, beaten-up trunk.
Yep.
And apparently the only person in this area that has a trunk that is beaten up yet has prestige is this woman's cook. The cook of the Todds, Miss Eliza Dunn, her damn self.
Yep.
So, homegirl has to go, but he has too much blood on his hands, so he decides to just pay 6 months' rent to some cottage out in East Bumblefield.
Rhonda Shawn.
And sends her out there.
Pretty much. You know, you ain't wrong.
Yep. Yep. It is the most elaborate thief of a trunk I have ever heard of in my life.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
The
just,
lengths to which he goes to get this trunk.
you know, just like, you know, fake a burglary and just take the trunk and like a nice candlestick or a candelabra or something and just call it a day. But like, no, you had to go through all this massive amounts of planning and detail for a trunk. Anyways.
Yes.
So,
Here's my theory.
okay.
I think, as Poirot said, he enjoys the theater. So he probably is like, I'm looking for a role. I can do an Australian accent. Decently. I can do enough of an Australian accent that people will think I'm from Queensland and just kind of ignore it. It's fine. We'll call it good.
That's
But
solid.
please continue, Tyler.
Oh wait.
Oh,
So,
yes.
Tristan, can you tell us who? Yeah. Can
What?
you tell us? Can you? It's me. It's me.
Where is the voice coming from?
Can you tell us who the suspects are?
Oh, well, yeah. I would say you covered them very nicely as you were recapping the entire episode, which I appreciated. Well,
No, because it doesn't come until the end, really, that we have a crime. So
that's fair. That is fair. We do
Yeah.
just have a missing persons case. But it's Simpson and Davis, both of whom work at the bank. Those are the main suspects. And also at one point, I think Poirot was grilling Mr. Todd because he suspected him early on.
Oh, Hastings suspected him.
Yes.
Because Hastings is always wrong.
he is always wrong, but that's how he works. Poirot is basically like, well, Hastings, what do you think? I think it's this. Well, it's not that then. So we can eliminate that. We'll put that over here. But yeah, it's these two fellas that work at the bank, Simpsons and Davies. And
Yes.
and one of them kills the other one, so it's pretty clear who did it.
Yes. I thought you were just gonna say, well, clearly the suspect is Simpson, and then we were gonna move on our way.
Yeah.
But yes, that was a much more accurate suspect list at first.
Thank you.
At first, yes.
I took notes. Thanks.
Sorry for interrupting, Tyler. Please do go on and tell us how
You're
the crime
good.
solves.
Eliza's gone. Davis is dead. So they open the trunk, as Melissa, you told us earlier. Poirot and Hastings got Scotland Yard to finally open up the trunk because they were waiting on a warrant. Then Poirot was like, there's a body. And like, I'm sure that'll expedite things. Get the thing open.
Yes.
Davis is there. Did. It is at around this time? No. Yes. No. Yes. Yes. So so they head off to and like they went through a newspaper trying to find out boat times after the porter let slip his theory about Simpson going off to Bolivia.
Right.
So they find,
I believe you mean Bolivia.
He says it with a W, right?
He
Yes,
does.
he says Bolivia.
Yes, he has a a different dialect.
A very interesting Cockney accent, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I believed him, and so did
And
Poirot.
so, yes, Tyler's right. Yeah.
So they get to the docks. The train from England to Bolivia.
The boat train.
The boat.
The water train.
So the boat that they believed was going to... Gosh, what was the country that they thought he was going to? Because Bolivia's landlocked.
Bolivia.
Right.
So they said that he would have to go through another country. I can't remember what it is right now. I believe it was Argentina, but I think that's wrong. But
I'm not sure.
regardless, they discovered that it's the wrong country, and in fact, Simpson is heading to Venezuela.
Correct.
Because the notes that the porter saw on Mr. Simpson did not say Bolivia. It said Bolivar. which is
the currency.
Yeah, which is the currency in Venezuela. Yeah. So
Yep.
They spot him ready to board the docks, and he does this weird half-hearted run right into two guards ready for him.
I love Poirot's tactic, because he's looking around the dock. He's like, I don't exactly see him. He could be any of this. So he just yells out, Simpson!
Oh, yeah.
And the guy turns right at him. It was like, oh, you've caught me! And it's terrible acting, but it's so campy and so fun. And then he runs like a kid who's been spun around on a bat for the 7-inning stretch straight into these two guards, and it's beautiful.
Yep. So they catch him, and then we go back to Poirot and Hastings' apartment, and he is framing his check from the Tods for 1 guinea. Because he wants to remind himself. What did he say? Because it was so brilliant. He said that a domestic can lead to a murder. Or something like that.
Is absolutely wonderful.
Yep. And that is episode 1, season 1 of Poirot.
What would you rate it, you guys?
How many mustaches are we doing for the TV show episodes? We've never done this before.
I would assume 5, just like the short stories.
Okay.
Sounds good. Tyler, you go first.
Oh, this is tough. I'm going to have to say 3 out of 5 mustaches. I loved a lot of it, but there were a lot of things that I had trouble with. But then again, this is only the pilot.
Mm-hmm. Okay, fair enough. I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 mustaches. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed the campiness. I thought it was great. I loved seeing Suchet and Hastings, Hugh Fraser, on the show. Maybe it's just that I was so charmed by it because I loved hearing their voices together. And the cook was great. She was really wonderful, and there was just enough Agatha Christie. It's rubbing off on me. Just enough of the Poirot ridiculousness that I'm solidly at a 4 out of 5.
Now, hear me out on this one. I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 5 for one reason, and it is the opening title sequence.
Good God.
That's all I care about. I'm gonna play it on a loop to fall asleep to every night. The episode was fine. I would actually, in genuine and earnestness, I would probably give it about a 3 or a 4 out of 5. It was good. It wasn't spectacular. It was a strong start, but it's kind of interesting rating these because you get into what did you think of the acting, and what did you think of the script and the way it was shot, and there's a lot of other factors besides just was it a good mystery.
Yeah.
Right.
because it was really fun and campy, but I would say also some of the acting was not great, and it did not look good as far as like a TV show goes. It is a pilot, and so I will forgive it and give it a 4 out of 5 in earnestness. But that theme title gets a 6 every time.
6 every time.
Okay, can I change my rating?
Sure?
Yes.
Okay, I will bump it up a 0.5 mustache, like a half stash.
Okay.
Half stash. Okay.
Because I do love
Why?
me some Dermot Crawley.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, they don't get a full 4. Because I just felt that Poirot's mustache just was not glorious enough. And there's been such an emphasis on the mustaches in the book, and it just did not deliver for me.
You know what? I was thinking the same thing. I was actually just about to ask, so how many mustaches are we going to give Poirot's mustache?
See, and that's the sad thing. It's so small. It's not a particular notable one.
Yeah, and
It's
he makes a
nothing
point.
like the glory that is Kenneth Branagh's mustache crime.
Not even Albert Finney's either. And
Like, I
Agatha
think-
Christie bemoaned Albert Finney's mustache in the original film of Murder on the Orient Express. So this, I imagine she rolled in her grave.
I'm sure.
It only gets a 2 out of 5 mustaches for me.
I would say so too. 1 for each side.
Yep.
I give it a
It
1.
certainly is. Oh, wow. Wounded.
Jap had a better mustache.
He
than
Yeah.
this,
did.
honestly.
He did.
And don't make a
He looks
point
like
about,
the-
like, pomading and, you know, brushing and twisting your mustache like he did at the beginning of this episode. And then nothing changed. The mustache did not change the entire time. One mustache.
I also think that the that Jap looks like the dad from Inside Out, I think, is it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does.
Okay.
He was the inspiration for it, I'm sure.
I bet.
Uh-huh.
Oh, shoot.
All right. And with that, I call this meeting... How do we do this?
Done? I don't know.
The meeting adjourned?
Yes. Gavel sound.